A panel on MSNBC discussed the Republican tax bill and their refusal to fund CHIP, which is the Children's Health Insurance Program. But what's telling about this clip is that the host, Stephanie Ruhle, is kind of ignorant on the overarching issue. So let's watch and then I'll explain.
Last night, late night host Jimmy Kimmel made his return to Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he brought along a very special guest, his 7-month-old son. Kimmel was out last week while his son underwent a second heart surgery. During his return, he made an emotional plea to protect a children's health insurance program known as CHIP that Congress let expire in October.
CHIP is the Children's Health Insurance Program. It covers around 9 million American kids. Overwhelmingly, Democrats and Republicans supported it until now. Now CHIP has become a bargaining chip. It's on the back burner while they work out their new tax plans. I don't know what could be more disgusting than putting a tax cut that mostly goes to rich people ahead of the lives of children.
I want to bring back my panel. Steve and Eddie, why don't they have money for this? This seems like such an... America voted for bipartisanship. They voted because they felt like President Trump was not an ideologue and he would be pragmatic. Help me understand why there wouldn't be the money for this.
Well, there's kind of cruelty and callousness that kind of rule the day.
But who does that win for?
Who
says, right on, man, don't help the kids? That's what I just can't figure out.
You think about what Senator Orrin Hatch said on the floor in the Senate, that we are broke, we don't have the money, and we know that the estate tax that's in the tax plan is actually more expensive than CHIP. What we have here, Stephanie, and I see the emotion, what we're running here is a value deficit. We talk about monetary deficits, but we have a value deficit in this country. What do we value? What do we cherish? How do we extend to our fellows dignity and standing? And the most vulnerable among us, children.
But what is the Republican rationale? One of Roy Moore's points, I think it was, Roy Moore loves children, Doug Jones loves abortion. If it is the party of family values, and in order to be a family, that includes children, then who wants...
Greed and power.
Then help me, who at the Republican roundtable says, let it ride?
The hypocrisy and the rot are worthy of discussion, the meanness, the cruelty, but this is very simple to understand, and it gives me no pleasure to say this.
I've spent my life, I can't figure it out.
I've spent my life in the Republican Party. It gives me no pleasure to say this. This party has demonstrated a complete incapacity to govern, period. And I think that there will be a tsunami come 2018 that wipes it away.
You're still not answering my question. I want to understand, who is the body that's saying, this isn't a good political move, we don't have the money? They have the money when they want the money.
Part of what I'm trying to say is that there is a hierarchy of concern. We don't have the money because we're busy giving money to our donors. We don't have the money because we're governing for the top 1%. The top 1/10 of a percent is greed and power.
Wynn, who you and I have met a number of... Steve Wynn's a great guy. Steve Wynn, who raises money for the RNC, the Grand Poobah over there, is like, yep, forget the kids. Who's the person who says, let's not do this?
They don't care, period.
Wow.
The government is corrupted. It's corrupted. It is not about regular people. It is not about that vulnerable child. This tax bill is a payoff, corrupt from A to Z to the special interest constituencies. One thing that Jimmy Kimmel said was wrong. Rich people aren't benefiting from this. Faceless multinational corporations are benefiting from this. They've even taken rich people out of the equation as beneficiaries of the programs. So this is a bought and paid for corrupted institution, and the American people revile it. They've assigned it a 15–16% approval level, and there's good reason for that. But there's no understanding here other than the broad understanding of the magnitude of the corruption.
And this is for corporate America. This is why they don't have the money, because they're giving a corporate tax cut.
Okay, I have a lot to say about this. So first of all, a quick correction. This is for rich people and for corporations. It's not just for corporations and rich people are excluded. No, it's for rich people and corporations. If you look at all the different tax cuts that are part of this proposal, they overwhelmingly go to the rich and corporations. But overall, those two gentlemen on the panel there are mostly right. They're saying, yeah, it's corruption. They're serving their donors. That's what's happening. And they don't care. They don't care about the side effects of this. And, oops, we didn't fund a children's health care program. Whatever. Who gives a shit? So they're largely right about it. But what I find absolutely stunning is that the host here, Stephanie Ruhle, she seems to genuinely be shocked by their answer. She keeps asking, why isn't there money for this? Why isn't there money for this? She says it over and over, and I don't understand. Why don't we have money for this? I can't believe who's sitting back and going, you know what? Don't worry about the kids. And then they give an example, she gives an example of a Republican mega donor, and it's like, he seems like a nice guy. Stephanie, anytime you have a bill like this, which overwhelmingly serves the rich and corporations and screws over everybody else in the country, if you make $75,000 a year or less, your taxes are getting raised. What's going on is corruption. What's going on is legalized bribery. Especially when it comes to the issue of health care, if you trace back why are we doing policy X, Y, or Z, you're going to find big pharma is profiting. You're going to find health insurance companies are profiting. You're going to find healthcare product manufacturers are profiting. Look at Tom Price, invested $300,000 of his own money, Representative Tom Price, and then proposed bills that increase the profits of those companies. You are 100% of the time going to find rich people and corporations profiting. You're also 100% of the time going to find politicians taking campaign contributions from big pharma, from for-profit health insurance companies, and then they're going to do their bidding. So I honestly think it's somewhat indefensible that you have a host on what's supposed to be the liberal network who apparently is stunned that, corruption, legalized bribery, doing the bidding of your donors in corporate America and the rich instead of the American people. Why don't we have the money for this? Why don't we have the money? I got to show you guys two headlines because just so you know, anytime they say, we don't have the money for this, which literally Senator Orrin Hatch made that case on the floor of the Senate. He said, listen, Chip, the Children's Health Insurance Program, sure, I'd like to help those people, but I'm not going to help people who can't help themselves, and we don't have the money. He's talking about sick kids. He's going, I don't want to help people who can't help themselves. In other words, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you sick kid. But hey, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. Funny, you seem to have money for this. This is a $1 billion new U.S. embassy in London. $1 billion. $1 billion. You could have built a U.S. embassy for fucking, who knows, $5 million? You spent $1 billion. They always have the money when they want it. They always do. Now, that's just $1 billion we're talking about. How about this next one? There was a U.S. fighter jet program, the new F-35. The program cost over $1 trillion. Point number one is the old F-35 worked perfectly fine. Point number two is, for the longest time, this F-35, the new one, couldn't even fly properly. But overall, in the lifetime of the program, over $1 trillion was spent on a new fighter jet. We always have the money when we want it. Nobody ever says, hey, listen, we got 900 military bases around the world. Those bases cost $100 billion a year to maintain. I think maybe we should cut those bases by 50% so we can save $50 billion. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Nobody says that. Nobody's ever said, hey, I'm not sure we can afford the $80 billion a year we give to big banks in corporate welfare. I'm not sure we can afford that. No, hey, listen, I want to give ExxonMobil $4 billion a year in a corporate welfare check to help them with research and development. We can't afford it. We can't fucking afford it. We can't afford it. What are we going to do? Nobody, whenever it's a program for the rich, for corporations, for the military-industrial complex, blank check, motherfucker, blank check. Whenever it's college, whenever it's healthcare, whenever it's a safety net program for poor people, whenever children's health insurance, we don't have the money. We don't have and the hosts on MSNBC. The best you're going to get from the hosts on MSNBC. And I don't want to shit on this conversation too much because at least the people on the panel had the answer. But it's just stunning to me she doesn't get it. The host on MSNBC is, whoa, I can't believe they don't have the money for this program. In other words, she actually believes them when they say, hey, we don't have the money for it. Like, she hears that and she's like, well, I guess that seems pretty reasonable. I guess we don't have the money for it. Obviously, we have the money for fucking sick kids. Clearly, we have the money for sick kids. 100% we have the money for sick everybody. Did you know that with just the increase in military spending this year, just the increase in military spending this year, so not the total military budget, which is over $700 billion, but just the increase, which is anywhere from $50 to $100 billion, you can fully fund Bernie Sanders' free college program. I mean, think about that. People will argue, we don't have the money. We don't have the money for free college. Meanwhile, the cost of free college in total is less than just the increase in the military budget for this year. They're fucking full of shit and they're liars because they're corrupt. Do you understand that? Now, also with Medicare for All. We can't afford it! Medicare for All is so expensive! It's so expensive! That's the kind of way we're going to bankrupt! We can't afford it! You know what? They're right. It is expensive. You know how much it costs over the next 10 years to do Medicare for All? $32 trillion. That's a lot. There's a T in that bitch. $32 trillion. But what they don't tell you is, if we don't do it, our current system will cost $49 trillion over the next 10 years. So that means there would be a net savings of $17 trillion if we do Medicare for All. But they still have the nerve to tell you, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. No, we can't afford our current system. We can't afford a rapacious, unnecessary, for-profit, cash-sucking middleman to be there anymore. That's what we can't afford. But don't worry, all you have to do is utter the words, we can't afford it, if you're a corporatist and you're a plutocrat, and the liberal network hosts will go out there and say, you know, gosh, man, it would be nice if we had health care for kids, but hey, they say they can't afford it. I wonder why they say they can't afford it. And then she'll ask 43 times, hey, why can't they afford this? Listen, Stephanie, the answer is always corruption. The answer is always legalized bribery. The answer is always to follow the money and see who's getting their bidding done. The bidding of the American people is never done because we don't have big money donors. We don't have lobbyists on our side. So the chances of a politician doing the bidding of a grandma from Cleveland versus the Koch brothers or Sheldon Adelson or a big money donor, there's no chance they're going to look out for regular people. So that's what you should be talking about all the fucking time. I think her ignorance on this is fairly inexcusable. That's what you should be talking all the time. You should be talking about the corruption because that's the main driving factor in our politics. How else could we have a system where 80% of Americans want a minimum wage increase and we don't get it? 93% want a universal background check for gun purchases because we have a mass shooting every other week and we don't get it. Only 17% still want to be in Afghanistan, but we're still in Afghanistan. I haven't seen a poll on CHIP, but I'd imagine if you poll the American people, probably over 90% of people are like, yeah, I'm for health insurance for kids. But we don't get it. Our infrastructure has a grade of D+. Poll the American people, ask them if they're happy with the infrastructure getting a grade of D+. I'm curious what their fucking response will be. It is crystal clear The American people want us to be a social democracy. Instead, we're a corporate plutocracy, kleptocracy. And you need to be the cop looking out after this and calling out the bullshit, but instead, you have to inquire repeatedly because you don't understand the most basic facts about the way our politics function. It's really sad. Thankfully, the people on the panel straightened you out, but now you know it. Now you should talk about it endlessly, how we are amazingly corrupt. Whenever they say we don't have the money, we do have the money, but they just don't want to prioritize those things that would look out for regular people. And they don't give a fuck if it means, hey, maybe some kids don't get their health insurance or health care and maybe they die. They don't care. They do not care.